The smoke alarm didn't beep, it screamed. That shrill, broken metallic wail ripped me out of sleep, straight through the thin guest room mattress and the stale detergent smell of my childhood sheets. For a second, I thought I was back on the ship. Fire drill, berthing lights slamming on, boots hitting metal. My hand shot out for a rack curtain that wasn't there and hit the cheap wooden nightstand instead. The alarm shrieked again. "Fire!" I yelled, already on my feet. The carpet under my bare soles scratched like it always had when I was a teenager sneaking in after curfew. The hallway smelled wrong. Smoke, hot plastic, something chemical burning. "Mom? Dad?" I shouted, tearing down the stairs. No answer. The alarm blared over the stairs, bouncing off framed family photos. The air got thicker near the back door, heat pushing against the glass. I yanked it open and stumbled into the backyard. The cold, pre-dawn air slapped my face. Dew soaked my feet. And there, next to the rusted grill beneath the sagging porch light, sat my uniform. Burning. The metal trash can we used to stuff fall leaves in glowed orange from the inside. Flame licked up in a dirty column, eating white fabric, turning it black and then nothing. The smell hit me full force. Synthetic fiber, starch, sweat memories turning to acrid smoke. For a heartbeat, my brain refused to process it. My ceremonial dress whites. The ones I'd pressed by hand yesterday, every crease razor sharp. The ones with the tailored lines I'd finally paid for after years of off-the-rack fixes. The uniform I was supposed to wear in 6 hours when I walked across the parade ground and shook an admiral's hand. Gone. My body moved before my brain caught up. I grabbed the garden hose, twisted the crusted spigot. Water sputtered, then gushed. I aimed it into the trash can. Steam exploded up with the smoke, a boiling cloud that smelled like plastic, mildew, and scorched hopes. The fire hissed, protested, then died in angry little crackles. I stood there, panting, hose forgotten in my fingers, staring into the twisted, sodden mess. What was left of my whites clung to the metal sides, blackened, half-melted patches. A shoulder seam here, a bit of ruined gold piping there. The rest was ash and ugly clumps. On the side of the can, taped crooked with blue painter's tape, was a scrap of paper. "Enough playing soldier. Come home." My chest went hollow. The handwriting was familiar, angular, careful. My father's. Behind me, the porch light buzzed. The sliding door rattled. My mother's voice came thin through the glass. "Olivia? What on earth?" She stepped out, robe pulled tight, slippers soaking instantly in the wet grass. The smoke curled around her, carrying little ghosts of burned thread. Her eyes landed on the trash can, on the scraps, on the note. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God," she whispered. I turned to her slowly. "What did you do?" I said. She flinched at the way my voice came out, flat, clipped. The voice I used on a bridge when someone had just screwed up and lives were at risk. "Livy, it wasn't supposed to—" She reached for me, then stopped, fingers hovering uselessly in the fog of steam. The back door creaked again. My father stepped out, gray t-shirt, gym shorts, the same weathered face that had glared at my first set of dog tags like they were contraband. "Turn that hose off, you're flooding the yard," he snapped, like this was a chore gone wrong, not my career burning in a trash can. I dropped the hose. Water puddled around the can, reflecting the porch light, warped by rivulets of ash. "Dad," I said, "what is this?" He glanced at the note, then at me. For a moment, guilt flickered across his features. Then the familiar, rigid pride slammed down like a hatch. "It got out of hand," he said. "We were just—" "You burned my uniform," I said. "My dress whites. For today." "It's just clothes," he said. "You can reschedule some ceremony. We needed you here." The words hit harder than the smoke. "Some ceremony," I repeated. That some ceremony is my promotion to commander. Admiral Harper, whole leadership class. 20 years of service capped in one moment. You knew that. He bristled. You're our daughter, he said, not their robot. That thing hanging in our house like it was more important than family. It was hanging in my room, I said, because I knew I couldn't trust it near you. The sliding door rattled again. Ethan stepped into the doorway, hair sticking up, wearing an old college hoodie. He took in the scene, the can, the steam, the note, and went very still. His eyes wouldn't meet mine. Did you help? I asked. He swallowed. Liv, did you help? My voice cut the air like the edges of the burned fabric. He looked at Dad, then back down at his feet. I thought, he muttered. It was just a protest. It wasn't supposed to get that bad. My hand shook finally, the adrenaline starting to flood out. Mom, I said, turning to her, grasping for some last outpost of sanity. Tell me you tried to stop this. Her eyes were shiny. I just wanted you to reconsider, she whispered. To think about what you're doing. Soon you'll be deployed again, and we'll never see you. You'll outrank your own father. It's not natural. The word landed oily. My mouth tasted like ash. I have a ceremony in 6 hours, I said. I am supposed to walk onto that parade ground as who I am. And you lit that on fire. Mom's shoulders sagged. Skip it, she said, almost pleading now. Stay. We'll make breakfast. We haven't had you home in so long. You can watch Ethan's presentation later. He's been working on it for weeks. Real job, real office. There it was. Real. As if ships and storms and deployments and sailors and dead friends had been some elaborate game I'd stubbornly refused to drop. The smoke thinned in the cool air, blurring the porch light, making everything feel distant, wrong. I looked down at the trash can. Half-melted fabric. Somewhere near the bottom, a glint. I reached in, ignoring the heat, fingers closing around metal. My scorched rank boards. The gold had blackened at the edges, but the silver oak leaves were intact, barely clinging. Lieutenant Commander. The rank I wore until I stepped on that stage this afternoon. I pulled them out, along with something else that clinked against my fingers. My ribbon bar, wrapped in a small plastic bag the way I'd left it on my dresser. They'd burned the cloth. They hadn't thrown away the proof of what I'd done. I wiped soot off my hands onto my t-shirt, the fabric already ruined. Then I took the note off the side of the can, folded it once, and slid it into the same plastic bag as my ribbons, next to the scorched boards. Enough playing soldier. Come home. They'd meant it as a command. My fingers tightened around the bag until the plastic crinkled. I looked up at my father, my mother, my brother, all of them ringed in smoke under that tired porch light. No, I said. My father's jaw clenched. No, he echoed. I'm going to that ceremony, I said. With or without your blessing. With or without the uniform you tried to destroy. My heart hammered, but my voice stayed even. I have salutes to return, I added. On my feet. On that parade ground. Not hiding in a kitchen while you pretend this life never happened. Mom's eyes filled. You can't go like this, she said. You have nothing to wear. I looked at the scorched boards in my hand and felt something old and sharp and unstoppable flare up inside me. Watch me, I said. The smoke alarm finally stuttered off inside, leaving the backyard strangely quiet. The fire they'd lit to end this chapter had done something they hadn't planned. It had burned away my last excuse for trying to fit my life into their frame. All that was left was my rank, my record, and whatever uniform I could find. Borrowed or not, I was going to walk onto that parade ground, and they were going to see exactly who I really was. By the time I hit the highway, the sun was just dragging itself over the horizon. Orange lights smeared across the asphalt, turning the windshield into a warped mirror. My t-shirt still smelled like smoke. Every bump in the road made the plastic bag on the passenger seat crinkle. Scorched rank boards, ribbons, note. Enough playing soldier. Come home. I tightened my grip on the wheel until my fingers ached. The closer I got to the base, the easier my lungs worked. The guard tower came into view. Chain link fence topped with razor wire catching the early light. The sentry at the gate took one look at my ID, then did a double take at my clothes. "Morning, ma'am," he said. "Everything all right?" "Supply emergency," I said. "You didn't see me dressed like this." He grinned on reflex, then sobered, something in my face shutting him up. "Yes, ma'am," he said. He popped the barrier. The familiar blend of smells hit me as soon as I rolled in. Jet fuel, ocean air, hot metal waking up for the day. Overhead, a helo chopped the sky, the sound thudding against my ribs. I parked near uniform supply and grabbed the bag. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed. Racks of dress whites and blues stood in orderly rows, plastic rustling as an air conditioner coughed out cold air, scented faintly with starch and cardboard. Petty officer on duty, a skinny kid with tired eyes and a fresh tattoo line peeking over his collar, looked up from behind the counter. "Ma'am, you're early," he said. "My dress whites are gone," I said. "I need a replacement. Ceremony at 1300. He blinked. "Gone? How?" "Burned," I said. His mouth opened, closed. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said quickly. "Let me check sizes." He vanished into the racks. I stood under the buzzing lights, bag clutched to my side, listening to fabric whisper as he searched. Memories floated up in the quiet. My first set of whites, cut too broad in the shoulders, sleeves swallowing my hands. My father saying, "You look like you're playing dress up," while my mother whispered something about brides. My younger brother Ethan snickering, "Don't faint in that, you'll drown in your own sweat." They'd never come to a single commissioning, not one pinning. 10+ years of ceremonies, and all I'd gotten from home was one bouquet with a note. "Stay safe. Don't stay gone." The petty officer reappeared, arms full. "Ma'am, I'm sorry," he said, laying 3 hangers on the counter. "We're out of women's 10L and dress whites. All we've got in your ballpark are these." He held up the first, a set of men's whites, stiff and boxy. The shoulders would hang off me like a coat rack. The second, a set 2 sizes too small, labeled for a junior officer. The third hanger was heavier. Oversized white jacket, gold piping, 4-button front, different cut. I knew that cut. 2 sewn-on silver stars at each shoulder. I stared. "Why is there an admiral's jacket in supply?" I asked. The kid flushed. "Display piece, ma'am," he said quickly. "For the leadership classroom. They kept it here because humidity was messing with the mannequin. We're not supposed to issue it. It's technically Harper's old cut." My chest tightened. The stars caught the fluorescent light, throwing it back in cold glints. "Everything else is gone?" I asked. "For your size?" He grimaced. "Yes, ma'am. Tailors didn't get this week's shipment yet. We're patching with what we have." I looked down at the bag in my hand. Burned boards, intact ribbons, the note, borrowed stars. My mouth tasted like metal. From the doorway behind me, a familiar voice cut in. "Let me guess," Senior Chief Ramirez said. "Someone decided our girl looked better out of uniform." I turned. Ramirez filled the doorway, compact, sturdy, eyes missing nothing. He wore his khakis like armor, rank anchors gleaming, sleeves rolled to show forearms that had hauled more than equipment over the years. "How bad?" he asked. I held up the bag. He stepped closer, took it, opened the plastic with calloused fingers. The scorched board slid into his palm, leaving a faint smear of black. "Jesus," he muttered. "They didn't half-ass it, did they?" His nostrils flared when he saw the note. "Who?" he asked. "Family," I said. For a second, his jaw worked like he wanted to spit something. Then he swallowed it. "Of course," he said. "They think this is a costume. Costumes are optional." He set the bag down carefully, like it held something fragile and dangerous. Petty Officer fidgeted, eyes flicking between us and the Admiral's jacket. "Chief, I told her," he started. "Relax," Ramirez said. "You're not the problem here." He lifted the white jacket from the hanger, the fabric hanging heavy in his hands. "This is Harper's old cut," he said softly. "They used it when they needed a mannequin at the schoolhouse. You put this on, you'll have every eyeball on you." "I already will," I said. "Word's going to spread. Lieutenant Commander shows up to graduation in a rack of borrowed men's whites that don't fit. Everyone sees the scorch marks on the seams. Whispers follow. They'll write their own stories." Ramirez studied my face. "What story do you want them to see?" he asked. "The true one," I said. "That someone tried to stop me from standing where I belong, and failed." "Then wear what proves you belong," he said. He held the jacket out. "Rank is sewn on, ma'am. Respect is earned. You've earned that part. The stars are just metal." I held his gaze. "I'm not putting on rank I didn't earn," I said. "I'm not pretending to be an admiral." "Then don't," he said. "Wear the coat. Strip the boards. Keep your own on you. Let them see exactly how wrong it looks when someone tries to drape you in a lie, and how solid you still stand inside it." The thought made something click in my chest. A borrowed shape. My reality pinned over it. Not hiding behind stars. Using the absurdity of them to spotlight what I actually was. "Can we tailor the sleeves?" I asked, fingers brushing the stiff cuffs. Ramirez cracked a grin. "I know a corpsman with a sewing machine and too much energy," he said. "She owes me. We can hem them enough that you don't look like you're wearing your grandfather's coat." The kid at the counter looked relieved to have instructions. "I'll get pins," he said, scurrying. I slipped the jacket on. The fabric settled around my shoulders, a size too big, the weight unfamiliar. The collar sat right, at least. The sleeves hung past my wrists, hiding my hands. The stars itched at the edge of my vision, foreign. In the mirror behind the counter, I looked strange. Not like myself. Like the wrong future. Ramirez stepped behind me, tugged the back, pinched fabric. "We take in here," he said. "Here, here. Hem the sleeves to just hit your wrist bone. They'll still be a little loose, but it'll read more intentional and less kid in dad's jacket." I caught his eyes in the mirror. "People are going to think I'm trying to steal rank," I said quietly. "People who know the regs will see no shoulder boards, no shoulder lace, no admiral's ribbons," he said. "They'll see your LT commander boards pinned on these." He tapped the scorched metal in the bag. "They'll see your ribbon rack. They'll see a story." "What story is that?" I asked. "That the cloth doesn't make the officer," he said. "The record does." He turned to the petty officer. "Go," he said. "Get Martinez from medical and tell her she's got 1 hour to work a miracle. Admiral playback later if she screws this up." "Yes, Chief," the kid said, eyes wide, and bolted. While we waited, Ramirez rested his hip on the counter, arms folded. "They ever come to a single one?" he asked. "What?" I said. "Ceremony," he replied. "Commissioning, pinning, return from deployment. Anything." I shook my head. "Not one," I said. They sent a card when I made lieutenant. It said, "Don't let this go to your head." He snorted. "Gotta love motivational speakers," he said. He tipped his chin at the bag. "You keep the boards?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "They didn't melt completely." "Frame them when this is over," he said. "Hang them next to your new certificate. Let yourself remember that the fire wasn't yours. The survival was." I swallowed past the tightness in my throat. "They told me to come home," I said. "Like the last 12 years were just extended teenage rebellion." He shook his head. "I've watched you lead sailors nearly twice your age," he said. "I've watched you stand on deck in weather that would have sent half this base scurrying inside. You've earned every stitch. Don't let their fear rewrite that." Martinez showed up in a rush, short, quick-footed, a sewing kit under one arm. "Chief says you need tailoring," she said, eyeing the jacket, then my face. "He also said if I poke you, I'm dead, so hold still." Between them, they turned the Admiral's coat into something I could move in. Pins slid, chalk marked, fabric folded. Martinez's fingers flew, the small silver needle flashing under the fluorescent light. Her breath smelled faintly of mint gum. The scissors made soft snips. She hummed under her breath as she worked, an off-key tune that somehow calmed my nerves. "You getting pinned today?" she asked, not looking up. "Graduate, promotion announced," I said. "Then back to a ship." "Good," she said. "We need more officers who show up to supply at dawn instead of trying to bluff their way through the day in coffee-stained khakis." She finished the last stitch, tied it off with her teeth, and stepped back. "All right," she said. "Try." I slid my arms back in. This time, the sleeves ended just above my wrists. The body still hung a little loose, but it was drape, not drowning. I turned. In the mirror, the lines looked deliberate. Still not mine, but not ridiculous. Ramirez handed me the bag. "Boards," he said. I stared at the scorched metal, gold darkened, edges blistered. "Pin them?" he asked. I shook my head. "Not on the shoulders," I said. "Not today. I'm not pretending to be something I'm not." He arched an eyebrow. "Where then?" he said. I slid them into the inside pocket of the jacket, the scorched edges scratching the lining. "Here," I said. "Close enough to feel them. Far enough that the only rank anyone sees is the one on my chest." Ramirez nodded, satisfied. He picked up my ribbon bar, wiped a fleck of ash off it with his thumb, and handed it to me. I pinned it over my heart. Little colored rectangles. Years, sleepless nights, near misses, shared jokes. A deployment accident I still dreamed about, metal shrieking, water flooding, a hand slipping out of mine in the dark. That thought snagged. As if on cue, there was a knock on the open doorframe. A man waited there, leaning on a crutch. His right leg ended at mid-calf. "Ma'am," he said. "Petty Officer Haynes," I said, surprise cracking through the fog. "What are you doing here?" He brushed his hand over fresh ink on his forearm, coordinates, black and sharp. "Ramirez texted," he said. "Said you had a uniform problem. Figured I owed you something." He limped forward, the sound of rubber crutch tip tapping the tile. "Last time I saw you," he said, "I was being hauled out of a flooding compartment because you refused to leave without one more run down the ladder." My mind flashed back. Cold, dark water, alarms, the taste of salt and fear. His fingers slipping on mine, the weight of his body, the tension in the rescue line. "I didn't pull you alone," I said. "We had a team." "Yeah," he said. "That you were the one who went back when everyone else said it was too late." He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small and round. A coin. He pressed it into my palm. On one side, the silhouette of our old ship, etched against a stylized wave. On the other, the date of that near-fatal deployment accident and 3 words. She went back. My throat closed. "We had these made for our little unofficial association," he said. "The ones who were there. We give them to people who didn't just sign the logbook, you know." I turned the coin over, the metal warm from his hand. The letters were deep, the edges smooth. "Thought you might want to carry it today," he said, "when you step onto that field. Remind yourself the uniform's just cloth. What you did under it stays." I closed my fingers around the coin. "Thank you," I said. The words felt too small. He smiled. "Go get your bars," he said. "We'll be watching." After he left, Ramirez slipped a pair of pristine white gloves onto the counter. "Borrowed from the chief's stash," he said. "Don't get anything on them. Those idiots will cry." I couldn't help it. I laughed, a short, sharp sound that cut through some of the tightness in my chest. As I turned to go, he called my name. "Tran," he said. I looked back. "When you step onto that parade ground," he said, "some people are going to see an admiral's cut and lose their minds. Some are going to see a woman daring to take up space. Some are going to see a kid from their block who made it too far." He jerked his chin toward the coin in my hand. "Make sure the thing you feel," he said, "is the weight of every sailor who knows exactly why you deserve to be there." The clock on the wall read 9:30. In 3.5 hours, the stands would be full. Flags would snap in the wind. Names would be called. They had burned my uniform. They had not burned my record. I slipped the coin into my pocket next to the scorched boards, the metal pressing against my thigh. As I walked out of supply, the bass noise swelled around me. Voices, engines, the clank of metal. Word traveled faster than I did. By the time I crossed the quarterdeck of the leadership schoolhouse, whispers were already trailing behind me. "They say her parents did it. Borrowed Admiral's whites. You should have seen Ramirez's face." In the hallway to the classroom, a group of junior officers straightened as I passed, eyes lingering on the jacket, then on my ribbons. One of them, a woman with nervous hands and a brand new lieutenant bar, kicked off from the wall and stepped into my path. "Ma'am," she said, "I heard someone messed with your uniform." "Something like that," I said. Her gaze flicked to my eyes, then to the challenge coin imprint in my pocket. "I almost didn't apply for this program," she blurted. "My dad said women don't make it in command. Said I was setting myself up to fail." "How'd you end up here?" I asked. She swallowed. "My CO said, 'Apply anyway,'" she said. "I figured I'd rather fail trying than sit at home wondering." "Good call," I said. She looked at my jacket again. "You're really going to walk across that field like that?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Won't they say you're trying to be something you're not?" she ventured. I touched the coin through the fabric. "They've been saying that since I put on my first set of blues," I said. "Might as well give them something memorable to misinterpret." She huffed a surprised laugh. "Ma'am," she said, "if it's okay, I'll be clapping the loudest." "I won't need loud," I said. "Just honest." I kept walking. At 12:30, standing in the staging area behind the bleachers, the sun was high and merciless. The air smelled like cut grass and sweat and the faint metallic tang of brass polish. My classmates fussed with their uniforms, adjusting covers, smoothing invisible wrinkles, whispering complaints about the heat. I stood among them in a jacket that carried more stars than my career, my own rank hidden inside, my ribbons glowing over a chest that had weathered more than this. Some of them kept sneaking glances. No one said anything to my face. Beyond the row of flags, I could see the bleachers filling, Families fanning themselves with programs, kids squirming, veterans in caps sitting a little straighter than everyone else. In the very back row, under the thin shade of the last beam, three familiar figures appeared. My father, my mother, Ethan. Even from that distance, I could see the stiffness in my father's posture, the way my mother's hand clenched around her program, the way Ethan's eyes tracked the field like he expected it to swallow me. The PA system crackled. "Graduating officers, take your positions," a voice boomed. We snapped into formation, lines crisp on the edge of the parade ground. The band struck up a march, drums, brass, the sound rolling over us like a wave. The flags snapped in the breeze, bright against the blue. I slipped my hand into my pocket. The coin sat there, solid. The scorched boards scratched my knuckles. Fire. Uniform. Parade ground. Coin. The motifs of my mourning, all coming together in this one long stretch of grass. Forward! March! Boots hit the turf in unison. We moved. As we rounded the corner onto the main axis, the bleachers came fully into view. Hundreds of faces, a field of eyes. The moment the crowd saw me in that altered admiral's cut, with only my own ribbons on my chest, a hush fell. The music kept playing, but the murmurs dropped. It was the sound I'd felt in firefights and storm surges, a collective inhale before something breaks. Somewhere up on the reviewing stand, Admiral Harper had his hands clasped behind his back, cover low, expression unreadable. But his gaze tracked me like a spotlight. The fire they'd lit behind my parents' house had done nothing but strip me down to this: an officer in a jacket too big and a life exactly the right size. All I had to do now was keep walking, and when they called my name, not let my voice shake. Names blurred until they didn't. The ceremony rolled forward in that slow, choreographed way all Navy events did. Colors posted, anthem, invocation you could almost recite by heart. The sun beat down on our covers. The smell of fresh-cut grass mingled with sunscreen and starch. Rows of white uniforms stood at attention. Rows of civilians sat, fanning themselves with folded programs. And now we recognize the graduates of the Naval Leadership and Command Program. The PA boomed. One by one, names echoed out over the parade ground, each followed by a pause, a walk, a handshake. Lieutenant Commander Joshua Ames, cheering from the 3rd section, his family waving a handwritten sign. Lieutenant Commander Priya Shah. A cluster of relatives stood, hands over their mouths, eyes shining. Each name was a story. Different family dynamics, different paths. Some had whole cheering sections. Some had one tired spouse. Some had no one, just shipmates clapping twice as hard. I stood in formation, jacket heavy on my shoulders, sweat sliding down my spine under the fabric. The coin in my pocket pressed into my thigh. Lieutenant Commander Olivia Mai Tran. The sound of my own name on the PA hit like a bell. Everything else muted. Forward, the petty officer beside me murmured. My boot left the turf. As I stepped out of the line and onto the center path, I felt hundreds of eyes swing onto me like a turret. The Admiral's jacket moved wrong on my frame, slightly too broad in the shoulders, the hem a fraction longer than regulation. The lack of 4-star boards on the shoulders made it uncanny, like someone had erased the obvious and left the outline. My ribbons gleamed, precisely where they were supposed to be. Shaw's whisper reached my back, carried on the faint breeze. "You've got this." The walk from formation to the stage couldn't have been more than 30 yards. It felt like 10 miles. Grass under my boots, heat rising off the turf, the faint rustle of fabric from the bleachers as people leaned forward. Halfway there, I saw them. Back row, far right. My father's jaw was clenched so tight his neck muscles stood out. My mother's fingers strangled the paper program, knuckles white. Ethan leaned on the rail in front of them, eyes locked on me, face pale. I could almost hear his thoughts. This went further than I ever meant it to. Too late. The reviewing stand loomed. Admiral Harper stood at its center, flanked by other flags and captains. His uniform was flawless, stars where they actually belonged, chest a dense mosaic of colored squares. He didn't look at the crowd. He watched my approach with the same expression he'd worn in war rooms when we talked about ships and lives and foggy intelligence. No one stopped me. No one barked, "Wrong uniform," or "Get off my field." The Navy ran on regulations. It also ran on optics. And right now, the optic was glaring. The set of Harper's jaw said he understood exactly what was happening. I reached the ramp. My foot hit the metal. It clanged softly. "Lieutenant Commander Olivia Tran," the PA man intoned again. "Graduate, Naval Leadership and Command Program, promoted to Commander, U.S. Navy." That last part rolled through me like a current. Commander. The next stripe. The next weight. I climbed the ramp and stepped onto the stage. Up close, the glare of the sun off the white canopy made the world too bright. Sweat pricked under my cover. The air smelled faintly of canvas and hot paint. Harper stepped forward. Protocol said he'd shake my hand, hand me the certificate, pose for one quick photo, move on. Instead, he paused, eyes dropping briefly to the 2-star cut of my jacket, then to my ribbons, then to my face. I saw the moment he registered the mismatch. His gaze flicked toward the back row, just for a second. Then he took the microphone from the stand. The PA crackled. "Before we proceed," he said, voice steady, "I am exercising Admiral's prerogative." A ripple of low laughter moved through the officers on stage, then died when they saw his expression. "In our line of work," Harper continued, "we talk a lot about uniforms, ranks, regs. We should. They matter." He gestured vaguely toward his own stars. "But every now and then, something happens that reminds us what those things are supposed to stand on. Character." The word landed heavy. He turned slightly, addressing not just me now, but the whole sea of faces. "Lieutenant Commander, soon to be Commander, Tran," he said, "is standing here in a uniform that is not hers. Not by cut, not by rank. That is obvious to anyone who can read a shoulder seam." Soft, nervous chuckles. "She is not wearing this as a stunt," he said, voice sharpening. "She is wearing it because her own uniform was destroyed hours ago, off base, by people who thought fabric could erase 20 years of service." The air went electric. You could feel the crowd lean in. My throat burned. He looked back at me. "Commander Select Tran," he said, using the future title like an anchor. "Before I hand you this certificate, I have a question. On the record." He lifted the mic slightly. "Do you wish to recognize by name anyone who tried to stop you from standing here today?" Time stretched. The temptation flashed. I pictured my father's face when the fire caught, my mother's note, Ethan's guilty silence. They deserved to be called out, publicly, by rank, by relationship. But the coin in my pocket dug into my palm. "She went back." Ramirez's words echoed. "What story do you want them to see?" I let out a slow breath. "No, sir," I said, leaning into the mic. My voice carried clean across the parade ground. "I don't." A hush. I could feel hundreds of people waiting. Then what? I slipped my hand into my pocket, felt for the coin, the scorched edge of a rank board. "I'd rather recognize the ones who couldn't be here," I said. I lifted the coin so the front rows could see it, glint of metal catching the sun. "This," I said, "was given to me by a sailor who lost his leg when our compartment flooded on deployment. The back says, 'She went back.' I didn't do that alone. We don't do anything alone." The words came easier now, not rehearsed, but solid. "I stand here today," I said, "for everyone who was told to choose between family and the uniform, and chose honor." It hung there. Simple. Unapologetic. The first clap came from somewhere near the front of the bleachers. Sharp. Single. Then another. Then a third. In seconds, the entire parade ground erupted. Applause rolled over us like thunder. Boots shifted, hands slammed together. It wasn't polite clapping. It was that rough, from-the-gut kind that comes when people see something they didn't know they needed. Harper didn't stop it. He let it swell. And then, from the rows of veterans and Gold Star families, something else happened. They stood. Caps came off. Backs straightened. They saluted. Not the Admiral, not the flag. Me. Not because of the jacket. Because of what they'd just heard. The sight punched the air out of my lungs. Old men with shaky hands. Women with pins on their lapels. A middle-aged man with a folded flag tattooed on his forearm. Hands to brows. Salute. Protocol said I wasn't supposed to return salutes up here. My body didn't care. My right hand snapped up to the brim of my cover, palm flat, fingers together. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to that angle. My glove against my brow, their hands mirrored, the sun flashing off a dozen old rings. The applause dulled around it, became a hum. When I lowered my hand, the sound surged again. In the back row, my father shot to his feet. "That's enough theatrics," he shouted, voice cracking through the microphone's ambient pickup. The PA caught the edges of his words, mangling them but not hiding them. "This isn't who she really is." The crowd quieted like someone had cut a wire. Every head turned. My mother grabbed his arm, hissing something. Ethan's face went white. Harper's expression didn't change, but the air around him did. He handed the certificate to the assistant, then stepped to the front of the stage. "Sir," he called calmly. No mic, voice somehow still carrying. "You will sit down." My father bristled. "She's our daughter," he shouted. "Not your symbol." Harper picked up the mic again, eyes never leaving my father. "You're right," he said. "She's your daughter, and she is also a United States Navy officer whose record, conduct, and leadership are beyond reproach." He turned slightly, addressing the crowd, but his words were aimed like a laser. "For those of you who don't know," he went on, "Commander-Select Tran has served on 3 destroyers, led sailors through combat operations, and received commendations for actions that saved lives at sea. She earned her spot in this program. She earned this promotion. She earned every ribbon on her chest." His gaze flicked to the back row again. "No one," he said, "not even family, gets to burn that. Not here. Not in private." A murmur of agreement rippled. He looked at security on the side aisle. "If we have any further disruptions," he said evenly, "you will escort those individuals from the venue. They may address their concerns with my office in writing, after they've read the Navy's definition of honor." It wasn't a shout. It hit harder because it wasn't. My father's chest heaved. For a second, I thought he'd double down. Then his shoulders sagged, like something finally buckled. He sank back into the bleacher. My mother's hand stayed clamped on his arm. Ethan looked at me, eyes scanning my face like he was searching for someone he hadn't met before. On stage, Harper turned back to me. For the first time, the steel in his expression softened. He picked up the certificate, a thick sheet of parchment, crisp and heavy. "Olivia Mai Tran," he said, voice back into ceremony cadence. "By direction of the President, and with the advice and consent of the Senate, you are hereby promoted to the rank of Commander, United States Navy." He handed me the certificate. The paper was warm from his hand. The embossed seal pressed into my palm through the glove. "Congratulations, Commander," he said quietly. For me alone. "You did not bend." I swallowed hard. "Thank you, sir," I said. We shook hands. The flashbulb popped, PAO catching the moment. Me in an admiral's cut, with my own ribbons, ripping a certificate in front of a 4-star who just used his authority to shove my family's cruelty into daylight. The image would circulate in base emails and group chats before the day was out. Let it. I stepped back, turned, and walked off the stage. As I descended the ramp, my classmates clapped. Not all of them, but enough. Some with eyes down, some looking straight at me with something like respect, earned late, but earned. By the time I rejoined the formation, my heart had finally slowed enough that I could hear again. The rest of the names went by. I heard each one. I clapped for each. But the real ceremony had already happened. Not in the handoff of paper, in the refusal to weaponize names. They'd wanted me to choose between exposing them and erasing myself. I'd done neither. The program ended the way they all did. Benediction, dismissal, band playing us off the field. We marched out, row by row. At the edge of the grass, the formation dissolved into knots of families and officers. Photos, hug clusters, confetti that would make some poor deck seaman curse later. I took a breath and scanned the crowd. Hollander was there, hands in his pockets, grin like someone who'd just watched a bar fight go his way. Haynes leaned on his crutch nearby, nodding once at me, the coin now burning a familiar circle in my pocket. Ramirez loitered near the fence, arms folded, expression unreadable. I knew him well enough to catch the small tilt of his head. We'll talk. Past them, near the back of the bleachers, my family moved toward the side exit. They weren't walking fast. They wanted to be seen as leaving calmly, not fleeing. I could have let them go. Let the shame sit. Let the day stand as its own verdict. Instead, I heard my own voice in my head on the ship that night in the flood. One more run down the ladder. I stepped off the main path, weaving through clusters of people, the smell of cologne and sweat and camera flashes. "Commander!" someone called. "Later," I said without breaking stride. I reached them at the bottom of the bleacher stairs. "Dad," I said. They stopped. Up close, they looked smaller. Less like the giants of my childhood, more like people. Flawed, scared, exposed. My father's eyes were bloodshot. My mother's mascara had smudged under her eyes. Ethan's hoodie looked out of place among all the pressed fabrics. "Congratulations," Mom said immediately, the word too bright, brittle. "We were just—" "Don't," I said. "Not yet." My father bristled, then deflated. "Everyone was looking at us," he muttered. Like we'd done something unforgivable." "You did," I said. My tone stayed even. "But that's not what bothers you." He frowned. "What do you mean?" "What bothers you," I said, "is that for once, people saw me clearly and saw you clearly in the same moment. And it didn't match the story you've been telling yourself." His jaw clenched. "You made a spectacle," he said. I stood. I answered. Ethan's voice cut in, raw. "We burned it," he blurted. "The uniform. I held the lighter. Mom said it was just a symbol, that you'd overreact, stay home. Dad didn't stop us." Mom flinched. "Ethan," she hissed. "No," he said. "We did this. We thought we were protecting you from yourself, from becoming someone we didn't recognize." He swallowed, ran a hand through his hair. "Watching you up there," he went on, voice cracking. "Watching him," he jerked his chin toward the stage, "say your record out loud. I realized I have no idea who you've been for the last decade. I've been making fun of a story I never bothered to read."
The honesty hurt more than the fire had. I looked at each of them in turn. "You want to be in my life," I said. "This is what it looks like."
You don't get to burn my uniform at 0400 and then bask in the applause at 1400 like nothing happened. Mom's eyes filled. "We're sorry," she whispered. "I know that doesn't fix it, but we are." I believed her. It didn't soften everything, but it registered. I thought of Harper's words, of the veterans' salutes, of Haynes's coin. "You can stay," I said, "in my life. But here are the terms." My voice settled into that calm, briefing cadence again. "You call me Olivia, or you call me Commander," I said. "You do not call me little soldier or our girl playing Navy ever again. You do not mock this," I tapped my ribbons, "or downplay where it's taken me." They nodded, almost in unison. "You do not sabotage my events," I continued. "If you disagree with something I'm doing, you tell me. In words, in daylight, not with fire and notes when you think no one is watching." I thought of the note. "Enough playing soldier. Come home." "You don't get to define home for me anymore," I added. "I do. And right now, it's equal parts ships, this base, and maybe, if you do the work, this house." Mom's hand trembled on her program. We'll try," she said. "If you'll let us." I let out a slow breath. "I will," I said. "But I won't stop standing like I did today to make it easier for you." Dad finally met my eyes. For the first time, I saw not anger, not dismissal, fear. Of being left behind, of being wrong, of having a daughter whose worth outgrew his ability to define it. "I don't know how to be the father of a commander," he admitted. "Start by being the father of a woman you respect," I said. "Rank follows." He nodded once, like a man absorbing a direct order he'd never expected to receive. Behind me, Harper's voice called my name. "Commander Tran," he said. "You have a reception to get to." I turned. "I'll be there in a minute, sir," I called back. He took in the scene, my family, our faces, and gave a small nod. "All right," he said. "Don't make me send Ramirez to drag you." He disappeared into the crowd. I looked back at my parents and Ethan. "This isn't done," I said. "We'll talk more. Not today. Today I'm going to that reception with the people who saw the fire and still chose to stand next to me." Ethan stepped forward, hesitated. "Can I come?" he asked. "Not inside, just walk with you. I want to see that world." It was more than I expected. "Walk to the gate with me," I said. "The rest, we'll see." We started across the grass, the parade ground under our feet, the flags snapping in the afternoon breeze. Behind us, the stands emptied. In front of us, the base buildings gleamed in the sunlight, windows throwing back shards of white and blue. The same institution they'd tried to keep me from had just wrapped its highest authority around me like armor. The question now wasn't whether I'd chosen honor over approval. It was whether they'd learned to live with that choice, and whether I could keep carrying both the scars of their fire and the weight of my rank without letting either define me completely. The reception hall always smelled like coffee, waxed floors, and nerves. By the time I got there, the crowd had already sorted itself into the usual clusters: captains near the buffet, junior officers orbiting the bar, enlisted hanging just far enough from the brass to breathe. The noise hit me like surf: laughter, clinking glasses, low conversations about orders and billets and rumors. I slipped in through the side door, the modified Admiral's jacket still on my shoulders, the certificate tucked under one arm. The coin in my pocket knocked softly against the scorched boards with each step. Heads turned as soon as I crossed the threshold. There's a particular silence that follows a spectacle into a smaller room. Not full quiet, just a ripple of awareness, conversations bending around the new center of gravity. Ramirez intercepted me before I got 3 paces. "Nice entrance, ma'am," he said. 10 out of 10 for dramatics. 0 for subtlety. Subtlety failed at 0400, I said. This is the backup plan. He squeezed my shoulder once, then let his hand fall. "You did good," he said. "Up there, with Harper, with them." Felt like juggling torches over a puddle of jet fuel, I replied. "Welcome to leadership," he said. He steered me toward a small cluster near the far wall. Harper stood there with a glass of water, not the usual reception drink, sleeves immaculate. A few senior officers flanked him. Haynes leaned against the wall nearby, crutch parked, cup of punch in his hand like a medal he didn't quite trust himself to hold. When Harper saw me, he straightened. "Commander," he said. The new title still felt like it was settling into my bones. "Admiral," I said. He nodded at the jacket. "It suits you," he said. "For today." "Feels like wearing a borrowed story," I said. "Sometimes borrowed costumes help the audience see the real character," he replied. He reached to the table behind him and picked up a long, flat box, navy blue, with a simple embossed seal on the lid. "I can't undo what happened this morning," he said, "but I can make sure supply never puts you in this position again." He handed me the box. It was heavier than it looked. I flipped the lid. Inside, nestled in tissue, lay a new set of dress whites. Proper cut, my size, women's tailoring. Shoulder boards tucked neatly into one corner, still in their plastic. The hawk-eyed precision of a tailor who knew how a uniform should hang on a body like mine. "You went shopping," I said. "I called in a favor," he said. "There's a tailor in Norfolk who owes me for not writing him up for a truly tragic hem job in '98. Soft chuckles from the officers around us. A folded note rested on top of the uniform. I picked it up. The handwriting was neat, precise. "Commander Tran, you are the kind of officer you wish every sailor could serve under. Wear this knowing the cloth caught up to the rank you've already earned. R. Harper." Heat flooded my chest. "Thank you, sir," I said quietly. He nodded once, then his gaze sharpened. "I also filed a report," he said. "Off-base incident impacting readiness. It doesn't name your family, it names the reality. That your ability to show up in proper gear was compromised by sabotage." He held my eyes. "You don't have to press charges," he said. "You do need a record that says this was not your failure." My shoulders eased, just a fraction. "I appreciate that," I said. "You ever get tired of carrying the weight for other people's bad decisions?" he said. "You come see me. I've made a career out of correcting records that should have been written right the first time." He turned to go, then paused. "And, Commander," he added, "don't keep that jacket. We'll need it for the next stubborn officer who refuses to be cut down to size." I smiled despite myself. "I'll try to leave fewer scorch marks on it," I said. He snorted and moved off, sucked back into the gravity well of admirals and captains. Haynes limped closer, tapping his crutch on the polished floor. "Wasn't expecting the standing ovation," he said. "We're usually more of a grumble in silence crowd." "That coin is louder than any clapping," I said. He nodded at my pocket. "Keep it," he said. "You're going to need reminders on days when nobody's watching." He hesitated, then added, "For what it's worth, some of us recognize that look in your old man's face." "What look?" I asked. "The one that says, 'If she's really this strong, what does that say about me?'" he said. "You didn't cause that. You just stopped shrinking small enough to hide it." The words landed with more precision than any salute. "Thanks," I said. He clapped my arm, then drifted away toward a group of ex-shipmates forming by the buffet. Ramirez lingered. "They'll talk about today for a while," he said. "The jacket, the speech, Harper shutting down your dad." I rolled the coin between my fingers in my pocket. "Let them," I said. "If they're going to gossip, they might as well be telling a story where a woman doesn't disappear to keep everyone comfortable." He raised his plastic cup. "To fires that burn the wrong things," he said. I tapped my water glass against his. "To uniforms catching up to the people inside them," I replied. We drank. The rest of the reception flowed around us, speeches, small toasts, snippets of stories from deployments. A few younger officers came up to shake my hand and whisper thank yous that sounded a lot like confessions. "My mom threw away my application once," one said. "My boyfriend left when I re-enlisted," another admitted. "I thought I was alone," a third whispered. "You're not," I said each time. Later, when the crowd thinned and the staff started clearing plates, Ramirez walked me to the door. "You heading back to your quarters?" he asked. "Eventually," I said. "I need to get out of this jacket before it starts altering my personality." He smirked. "Careful," he said. "You keep standing like this, they might give you those stars for real someday." I shrugged. "Let them try," I said. Outside, the air had cooled. The parade ground was mostly empty now, just a few sailors rolling up cables, a groundskeeper collecting stray programs from under the bleachers. The flags flapped lazily in a gentler breeze. I stood at the edge of the grass and looked back at the stage. In my mind's eye, I could still see the moment, the veterans standing, hands to brows, the bright flash of sun on their rings. My father's shout, Harper's steady counter. The scorched boards in my pocket scratched my fingers. I imagined them framed on my wall, next to the new certificate, next to the uniform in the box. Burned rank, new rank, the bridge between. My phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. "I'm sorry again. I'm going to talk to the chaplain about those groups he mentioned. I want to understand, not just apologize." Another message, a second later. "Also, you look like you belonged up there, even in the wrong jacket." I exhaled, long. "Start with listening," I typed back. "The rest we can build." I slid the phone away and turned toward the barracks. The day had started in smoke and accusation, in a backyard where my family tried to shrink me back into a version they recognized. It was ending with a borrowed coat, a hard-won certificate, and a room full of people who'd saluted not the cloth, but the choices. Fire, uniform, parade ground, coin, salute. Each had tried to define me at different times. Now, woven together, they formed something else. Proof that when they tried to burn away who I was, they only managed to light me up where everyone could see. I walked back toward my quarters, the box under my arm, the coin in my pocket, and one thought steady in my chest. I'd spent years chasing their approval. From here on out, I was building something different. A life that could stand in any uniform, in any room, without asking permission to exist. The first call came 3 days later. I was back in my quarters, the Admiral's jacket finally surrendered to supply, the new whites still in their box on my dresser. The room smelled like coffee and the faint tang of cardboard. My promotion certificate leaned against the wall, not yet framed. My phone buzzed. Mom. I stared at it a heartbeat too long, then answered. Olivia, she said. Her voice sounded smaller without church acoustics. Hey, I said. How's the backyard? She let out a breath that was almost a laugh. The grass is ruined, she said. Your father keeps staring at the trash can like it's going to talk back. I know the feeling, I said. Silence hummed between us. We saw the chaplain, she blurted. At the base. That family group he mentioned. They have one for parents of service members. We went. My brain took a second to catch up. You came back on base? I asked. Yes, she said. We sat in a circle with other parents and listened to them talk about last goodbyes and missed weddings and fear. They used that word a lot. I didn't like hearing myself in their stories. I sank into the chair by the window, the cool vinyl creaking under me. What did you say? I asked. Not much, she admitted. I cried. Your father didn't, but he didn't leave. That mattered. He asked the chaplain, she went on, how you keep loving someone whose life scares you. The chaplain said, you learn to make room for their courage without trying to cut it down to size. She hesitated. I think we did the opposite, she said. We tried to cut your courage down and called it keeping you safe. The note flashed in my mind. Enough playing soldier. Come home. Why now? I asked quietly. Why go to a group after all these years? Because I watched an admiral defend you in front of everyone, she said. And I realized I'd never once used my own voice to defend you. Not at church, not with family, not even with myself. Her honesty thudded into me. Thank you, I said, for saying that out loud. She sniffed. We want to come back, she said. Not to that ceremony, we blew that. To see where you work, meet your crew. If you'll have us. The image of my parents on my ship's pier, my world, not theirs, felt surreal. Maybe, I said. Not yet. Let's earn that visit. She didn't argue. Your brother started something, she added. He's been going to the Veterans Center downtown, volunteering, listening. Ethan? I said. Listening? Yes, she said. He came home yesterday with a stack of pamphlets about advocacy groups. Said, if I helped burn a uniform, the least I can do is help somebody else keep theirs. A strange, reluctant pride sparked. That's a start, I said. After we hung up, I sat there with the phone in my hand, staring at the box on my dresser. The new whites didn't smell like smoke. They smelled like starch and possibility. On my tiny kitchen counter, the scorched boards lay where I'd left them, next to the coin Haynes had given me. I picked up the boards, turned them over. The burn lines were ugly. Charred gold, bubbled plastic, scratches. The metal still solid underneath. It hit me that this was exactly what I wanted on my wall. Not a perfect image, a scar that told the story. That afternoon, between briefings, I stopped by the base frame shop. The air inside smelled like sawdust and glue. Frames lined the walls, shadow boxes with medals, certificates, sepia photos of ships from before my grandparents were born. The clerk took one look at the scorched boards and lifted his eyebrows. Rough eval? He asked. Family fire, I said. He let out a low whistle. Got just the thing, he said. We chose a simple black frame, deep enough for the boards, the coin, and a small photo. Back in my quarters later, I printed out the shot the PAO had emailed me. Me on the stage in the borrowed jacket, coin raised, veterans saluting in the background. The angle caught the misfit coat and my steady posture in the same frame. I laid everything out on the table. Scorched rank boards, challenge coin, she went back. Photo of the parade ground salute, a tiny strip of the burned uniform edge I'd fished out of the trash can before leaving my parents' yard. The frame clicked shut with a small, satisfying sound. I hung it on the wall next to my promotion certificate, and below that, the box with the new whites folded neatly inside. Fire, uniform, parade ground, coin, salute. All in one place. Not trophies, evidence. The first time Ethan came to base, it rained. The sky was a flat sheet of gray, mist blowing sideways across the parking lot. The air smelled like wet concrete and salt. He stood at the visitor center entrance, hood up, hands jammed into his pockets, looking like someone who'd taken a wrong turn on the way to a coffee shop. "Nice of you to bring Pacific Northwest weather," I said. He shrugged. "Consider it a dramatic filter," he said. "Makes everything look more important." We went through the security briefings, the ID checks, the talk about what he could and couldn't photograph. Inside the gate, the base felt different with him there, like bringing a childhood friend into an adult job, worlds colliding. We walked along the pier, boots slipping slightly on wet metal. The ship loomed ahead, gray, solid, home. "Smaller than I imagined," he said. "Wait till you're inside," I answered. "Then it'll feel too small and too big at the same time." At the gangway, the watchman's eyes widened slightly when he saw who was with me. "Visitor, ma'am?" he asked. "My brother," I said. "Ethan Tran." Ethan's shoulders straightened at the word. "Permission to come aboard?" I asked. "Granted, ma'am," the watch replied. We stepped onto the deck. Ethan's eyes darted everywhere. The lines, the hatches, the welded seams. The smell of oil and metal and old paint curled around us. "This is where you live?" he asked. "Sometimes," I said. "Sometimes this, sometimes a rack on a different ship, sometimes a tent, sometimes a hotel that smells like mildew on the other side of the world." "And you like it," he said. It wasn't an accusation this time, just astonishment. "I'm good at it," I said. "There's a difference." He let his hand trail along the bulkhead, fingertips feeling the chill. "I started volunteering at that nonprofit," he said, voice low. "The one that helps vets with benefits and housing. Some of them talk about officers like they're superheroes. Some talk about them like villains." "Depends which ones they met," I said. He glanced at me. "I want to make sure when someone says Commander Tran, they're thinking about the first kind," he said. Emotion tightened my throat. "You're doing that," I said, "by listening, by not assuming you know more because you read a headline." We climbed the ladder to the bridge. The air up there was cooler, cleaner. The windows looked out over the gray water, the rain making little halos where drops hit the surface. "This is your office," he said. "Something like that," I said. "It's where I stand when it matters most." He stepped up to the center console, staring at the instruments, the screens, the worn grip of the helm. "Dad should see this," he murmured. "Maybe someday," I said, "when he can look at it without measuring himself against it." He nodded. "I told him I was coming," he said. "He didn't like it, but he didn't stop me. That's new." It was. On the way out, we paused at the quarterdeck. Ethan turned, looking back at the rows of steel and lines. "I get it a little more now," he said. "Why you didn't come home when they told you to." "They weren't inviting me home," I said. "They were inviting me backward." He thought about that, then nodded slowly. We stepped off the ship. "Do you still hate us?" he asked suddenly, rain blowing his hood back. I stopped. "I don't hate you," I said. "I'm angry. I'm hurt. I don't trust you yet. But hate?
No. Do you think you'll ever forgive us? He pressed. I think forgiveness isn't a switch, I said. It's a muscle. You use it over time. It either gets stronger or it doesn't. He chewed on that. I want to give you reasons to use it, he said. You're starting, I said. As we left the pier, a group of sailors passed us, headed on board. They straightened as they saw me, hands halfway to salutes before remembering we were out of the formal line. Ma'am, one said. Afternoon, I replied. Ethan watched, expression unreadable. You're someone here, he said. Not just Olivia from down the hall. I've always been someone, I said. You just never bothered to see who. He winced, but he didn't argue. On the drive back to the visitor center, the rain eased. I told Mom, he said. I want them to go to that group again, the chaplain one. She said yes. Dad grumbled.
Then he went to Google Navy family support instead of the stock market. I'm taking that as progress. I smiled, despite everything. That's something, I said. We said goodbye at the gate. He hugged me awkwardly, like he was still figuring out where to put his arms around my rank. See you soon, Commander, he said. See you soon, Ethan, I replied. Months slid by. Orders, drills, late-night watches, a deployment that almost got canceled, then didn't. Through it all, my family threaded in and out of my days in small, surprising ways. Text messages from Mom that read less like guilt and more like curiosity. What does underway replenishment mean? Is it scary when the ship rocks? Do you have good coffee out there? Emailed photos from Dad, sunsets from their backyard, the trash can now repurposed as a planter, overflowing with herbs. We decided this thing should grow something instead of burn it, he wrote once. And Ethan's updates. Sat through a whole VA forms workshop today. Didn't make a single joke. Growth? Helped a Marine get his housing sorted. He kept saying, I thought nobody cared. Got me thinking. The counseling stuck. They kept going. Not every week, not perfectly, but enough that the chaplain emailed me once with permission to say, they're doing the work when no one's watching. That mattered more than any public apology. The last scene solidified itself one morning on the bridge. We were at sea, somewhere between one port and the next, the ship cutting a white line through gray water. The world was soft with fog. The sun hadn't fully broken through yet, just a pale smear behind low clouds. The air tasted like salt and metal and coffee. I stepped out onto the bridge wing, mug warm in my hand, coat zipped up against the wind. Below, the ocean moved in slow, heavy breaths. Behind me, through the open hatch, I could hear the murmur of voices. Officer of the deck giving reports, watchstanders calling out bearings, the steady beep of equipment doing its job. In front of me, the horizon blurred into the sky. I set my coffee on the rail and pulled a small object from my pocket. The coin. She went back. I turned it over in my fingers, feeling the worn edges, the weight. Back inside, in my cabin, the framed shadow box hung on the bulkhead. Scorched boards, the strip of burned fabric, the photo of the parade ground, the coin represented in miniature. Next to it, my new whites hung ready in their garment bag. Cloth that finally matched the rank. No scorch marks, just clean lines. Below that, taped at eye level, was my leadership diploma, proof, on paper, that I'd passed a course the fire was never meant to touch. Underneath, pinned with an ordinary brass tack, sat a simple handwritten note. Not in my father's cramped script, in my mother's neat lines. We were wrong about who you are. We're trying to learn the right story now. Love, Mom and Dad. P.S. Your father asked me to add, "We're proud of you, not in spite of the uniform, because of it." I'd read it a dozen times, still wasn't tired of it. Out on the bridge wing, the wind tugged at my hair, humming in the railings. I lifted the coin in a small, private salute toward the horizon. "To every girl they told to play smaller," I murmured. "To every officer who had to stand in borrowed cloth until the Navy caught up. To every fire that didn't do what it was supposed to." The sea didn't answer. It didn't have to. Behind me, the watch called my title. "Commander Tran, we're coming up on the lane," the OOD said. "Recommend course adjustment to 085. "Make it so," I replied. The ship responded, the deck under my boots tilting just enough to feel. I slipped the coin back into my pocket. The fire they lit to drag me home hadn't ended my journey. It had lit the sky behind me so everyone could see exactly where I stood. Not waiting to be chosen, not hiding in a uniform that made them comfortable. Just standing. Scarred, steady, unshakable. Honor isn't given, it's worn, scarred, and unshakable. If you've ever had someone try to burn away your worth, follow Honor Line for more stories of women in uniform who refuse to back down.